Howdy gang, Blayne Smith welcoming you back to another Overkill Reviews, Banger's weekly metal review show. So, we got a big one this week, so there might be some new people coming in. If you're new here, hope you'll like, get subscribed, and for those new and old, we have a Patreon campaign. You can support us. If you like what we're doing, maybe consider pitching in. But let's get to the music. This week's band is very big, needs no introduction. Yes, you've probably already guessed it. Children of Bodom released Hexed March 8th on Nuclear Blast Records. My producer has informed me that no matter what, yes, I do actually need to intro the band, so... Children of Bodom, they're Children of Bodom, 97, Finland, 10th album. Same lineup as always, except Daniel Freyberg's coming in on rhythm guitars. Their last album, I Worship Chaos, wasn't necessarily worshipped. Can Alexi Laiho right his wayward ship? Let's find out with a review. So the first surprise with this record is the cover. It's a nice cover for a Children of Bodom album. I find they tend to normally skew more towards the Goosebumps side of things, but this one's a surprisingly arty depiction of Roy. It comes across a little bit more like a Doom record, but hey, good job. So normally I don't always break down albums track by track, because frequently that can be hella lazy. But I'm actually going to do that here for reasons that will become clear other than I'm hella lazy. So, things start off actually really well on the record. This Road, which you might have already heard, it's one of the singles, is a classic kind of Children of Bodom song, you know? It clips along really well, fun guitar parts, and they actually use, instead of abuse, keyboards, which was becoming a bit of a problem on I Worship Chaos. So, hey, I'm optimistic. Then we move on to the next song.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
So, Under Grass and Clover, which is another one of the singles, is maybe the worst Children of Bodom song I've ever heard. I really don't know what the goal here was. The whole song is sacrificed for this poppy riff that, I don't know, it sounds like pop punk. It would be at home on a Newfound Glory record. I don't know what's going on here. It's a total earworm in the worst way. It's been driving me mental since I had to listen to this album. And, so when that's not playing, there's barely a song. The cutaway from the riff is nothing. It's a barren drum beat, a guitar riff that's like this long that could have just been heavy guitar 4 in GarageBand dragged onto the timeline, and super heavy processing over Alexi's vocals, which people like. There's nothing wrong with his vocals. Why are we suddenly putting all this weird effects on them? You finally get to a solo halfway through the song, but then it's just back to the riff again afterwards. And if you don't like the riff, it's just the riff. It doesn't progress, it doesn't morph, it doesn't change, it just happens over and over. Breathe. Inner strength. So the reason I break down track by track is because this is the rhythm of the record. There will be a good song, and then a song that drives me crazy, and then a good song, and then a song that drives me crazy. Up next, we have Glass House, which returns with a pace and aggression, which is what I want from these guys, and it helps wash away the taste of the Fanta Orange of the last song. Fanta Orange, the worst pop. Next song, similar problem to Grass and Clover. It's Hakade's Nightmare, which is Children of Bodom's attempt at a kind of slower, atmospheric-y song. But again, it's reliant on you liking the core keyboard section, which really isn't super substantial, and there's not a lot going on in the rest of the track. I feel like Alexi trying to do a slow, atmospheric track is sort of like Michael Bay doing a tense, personal thriller. We come to you for explosions, dude. Where are the explosions? The whole dizzying guitar that we're used to hearing is just kind of really absent from this record. This is a guy who, on many people's lists, is one of the best modern guitarists, and I'm like, where is that craziness? And then I'm mad, but then the next song, I'm back on board. Kick in a Spleen. Yes, I checked thoroughly. The documents they sent me is kick in a spleen, not the spleen. So if it changes later on down the road, it's because they caught it. But it's that perfect level of ESL Children of Bodom thing that I really love. It adds a nice dynamic. And the song is, again, kind of classic-y Children of Bodom stuff. There's a cool guitar solo and a cool keyboard solo. It's that meshing of mellow death and power metal that these guys are the kings at. And you're like, well, if these songs are on here, what's with all these other songs getting in the way of these songs? Because the next song comes in, Platitudes and Barren Words, which the chorus to this song, both in terms of rhyming simplicity and a weird, again, kind of pop-punk tilt to this song where Alexi's singing instead of growling, but he's kind of half fallen out of it, and it just kind of comes off as ridiculous. I don't know what's happening. So if you're curious about any of the other songs, just follow this rhythm, and that's my feelings about the rest of the songs on the album. The only notable difference kind of shake up here is the last song, Knuckle Duster, is a re-recording of a 2004 song that made it onto an EP but never had a real proper home, but people have really enjoyed. And again, kind of nice return to form, classic stuff, unless you're reviewing the album and you're like, I wonder exactly how that compares to the original, and then you listen to them side by side and go, hey, look, you guys just kind of made this song slightly worse. Not a bad song, just slightly worse than it was. So, I know you might be already kind of dismissing my opinion of this because you go, oh yeah, this guy's always tough on big bands, or he wants some weird cult underground record that's unlistenable and he's just gonna hate on everything that's fun. But you might not be willing to listen to me. But let's check in with someone you might be willing to listen to. One, Alexi Laiho, in the press release that was sent to me with this album. He states, people have said that the album is generally catchier, so I started to think about that. Perhaps the song structures are easier to grasp on initial listen, but there's some crazy shit in there. Now, as a rule, if you have to tell someone there's crazy shit in something, it's probably because the shit in there isn't that crazy. If you gave me a Snickers bar and I was like, yeah, it tastes like a Snickers bar, and you're like, well, in actuality, I used $300 imported Peruvian chocolate. Those aren't peanuts, they're rare macadamia nuts that came out of a creature's butthole. And the nougat is made from, I don't know, children. It cost $1,000 a head. I would go, cool, it still tastes like a Snickers bar. And that's kind of what's going on here. If there is crazy shit in here, it's really not coming to the forefront because there's a bunch of sugary crap standing in the way. Now, it's certainly better than I Worship Chaos. That's hands down. So if you were okay with that, add 0.5 onto whatever you gave that album, and that's what this album would get. So, predictably, this album where I liked 50% of the tracks and disliked 50% of the tracks gets a 2.5 Roys out of 5 possible Roys. And that sounds like a rough score, but hey, if you're willing to buy the album and delete half the tracks, then hey, it's a 5 out of 5. Great job, boys. Knocked it out of the park. So your mileage may vary, but that's how I'm feeling. So that was the review. Obviously, leave a like or a dislike if you disagree with me and a comment down below letting me know how you feel about it. I don't know. Some of those songs drove me crazy. How are you feeling about them? It's everyone's favorite time of the week, though. It is shoutouts time! Yay! For this week's shoutouts, I did something that's exactly the same but also kind of different. What I did, because we might have some Children of Bodom fans in here that are like, boo, you suck, get out of here. Look, if you're a Children of Bodom fan, and hey, if you like this record, cool, man. Like I said, I can understand some of the tracks. So what I did was I picked 4 records that you might also like. So if you're stoked on this record, well, good news, buy it, and then maybe, consider getting 1 or all 4 of these albums. So, if you come to Children of Bodom for the power metal-y vibe, then Twisted Tower Dire is releasing Wars in the Unknown on No Remorse Records March 15th. Again, hella fun power metal. If that's your vibe, I think you'll like this as well. If, on the other hand, you go to Children of Bodom for some big power metal with some keyboards and it's kind of soaring, there's a French band you should check out. Aephanamer, I think, is releasing Procopton on Primeval Records March 22nd. Also, continuing with the mellow death train. If you're not so much into the keyboard kind of big stuff and you kind of just want some classic Swedish sounding stuff, Bleeding Utopia is releasing Where the Light Comes to Die on Black Lion Records on March 22nd as well. So kind of, 2 sides of the same coin there. And finally, Alexi Laiho did say there was a rock and roll vibe to this, and that's what he was going for. And if you want some kind of rock and roll infused metal, Sacred Monster released Worship the Weird, little indie release back on March 1st that I think is super worth checking out as well. So hey, there you go. That's enough metal for everybody, right? We got metal for days over here. So if it's your first time coming out, hope you get subscribed, get liked, check us out again. If you're a regular, thanks for always supporting us. We got great fans. We love you guys. This is Blayne signing off until next time.